Howdy folks, wanted to make a quick video here to walk through how to analyze and give you some examples of how to analyze camera movement in films. So I've got two great examples queued up for us that we're going to look at together. First one is one of my favorite directors, though horror is probably not my favorite genre, this is The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, where we've got Jack Nicholson going crazy in the middle of nowhere. Spoiler alert. So as we start to take a look at this scene, I want you to notice, take a look at the framing, where we're at. We're kind of at a medium close-up, could be called a close-up. Jack Nicholson's crazy eyes. Again, another maybe medium shot as this poor woman's trying to get away from her husband. Escape out into the snow, both kind of close shots. And then we're going to shift here. Whew, what a different type of shot now. This is like a bigger than wide shot, and that's actually a little kid running away as well from Jack Nicholson as he goes a little crazy in the woods. But so far, no movement of the camera, right? These have all been pretty still shots, and that's just as essential as a director putting in a camera movement. So watch how that develops as we watch the rest of the scene. So things will stay pretty much stationary. Even as the kid moves away, we don't follow him out into the darkness. We just see him walk away. Still in this nice close-up of Jack Nicholson as he gets crazier and crazier, and right here. Now we've just started to get some movement. We jumped inside the bathroom to a handheld camera, starting to look around. Just as this poor woman would start looking around for a weapon, she finds the knife that she brought into the bathroom with her. She's making sure the door is locked. Okay, back to some still shots. And now we can start to see like little hints of movement. The camera hasn't like fully started to shift, but we're staying on Jack as he starts to make a decision. And then I want you to see the contrast between these next two shots. Totally still to totally violent, right? We went from a stationary kind of full shot back to a medium shot, and we follow the axe as it rams into the door. Kapow! And I could start to talk about here how this one scene builds up to this one moment, right? Still, steady shots, all until Jack decides, I'm going to break this door down with an axe. Now it's on, right? This is the catalyst. This is the true descent of no return, or point of no return, for Mr. Nicholas and Jack Nicholson. There it is. And his descent. All right, so there's one. Now let's look at the opposite spectrum. Still going to be a very steady movie. There's not going to be a lot of movement here, but when the movement comes, it's very impactful. So this is a scene from Pride and Prejudice, where we have our two main characters, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, who have been like circling each other all movie. They've, sometimes been friends and sometimes been enemies. But you could always tell there was a spark there. And so again, you can kind of see the camera shaking a little bit as these two are talking. And for kind of a profession of love scene, I want you to notice the framing here for a second before we talk about camera movement. We've seen each character now, but we've never seen them both at the same time, right? We're always getting one and then the other. And I think that's important here because the director's kind of setting up the history of these two where they have not always seen eye to eye. They've not always been like, oh yeah, those two are going to end up together. Because you're not sure as you're watching the whole movie. And there, we just start to get a little camera movement. Did you catch it? It was so slight. I'm going to watch it again. It's right when Mr. Darcy's actually saying like, hey, I have feelings for you. Watch what happens to Elizabeth. That just slight zoom in. She's so locked in. She's so intent on listening to what he has to say. And then as she makes a move forward, now we also see the camera moving. So she has stepped into the frame to Mr. Darcy, right? Now we're seeing these both at the same time. And we get to continue this slight little camera movement. They're going to get together. Hooray. Now kiss, right? Everything's happy and glorious. And just as these two are starting to grow closer and closer together, the camera starts to get closer and closer together very slowly, very carefully, just like these two have done all movie. But in this final scene, we really get to see how that camera movement, just a slow zoom, emphasizes and reflects what we've seen for the rest of the movie. Um, so these things are subtle and they're important. And usually you have to be putting them in context with the rest of the film. So as we're watching The Crucible, pay attention. All right. So, fun fact about that last clip is that that's actually the music that my wife walked down the aisle to during our wedding. So, mad props to that composer and or Joe Wright for directing a great movie. Cool. I like it. Says my wife. All right. So now that I've talked about a couple of clips, I've expressed ideas and how I might look at this as I'm watching it. But that's not the only thing we have to do in English class. We also have to write about these things. So remember, when we're writing responses, almost any response, I want you to think about it in 3 parts. I want you to think, what do I think? How can I prove that? And why does my evidence back that up, right? What do I think? How do I do it? Or how do I back it up? And why do I think it, right? Why is this the thing that's coming into my mind? Claim, evidence, and reasoning. And so if I examine that last scene in Pride and Prejudice, my thoughts might come out something like this. And this took me a little while. I had to think through an idea, revise it, until I came up with something that's written here. So Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet are finally moved together, right? I'm starting off with kind of my context of the claim, or context of this scene, right? I haven't really introduced my claim yet, but I want to set up my reader to know, here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these 2 characters finally getting together. After dancing around their would-be romance all movie, the director Joe Wright crafts a final scene where a simple and singular camera movement pushes them together, right? Now I've introduced my claim. Like, here's what this camera movement is doing. It's the camera movement that's pushing them together. So as they talk, Wright frames his 2 love interests individually, never putting both on the same screen together until Elizabeth makes her move. As she steps towards Darcy to kiss his hand and accept his proposal, the camera gets slowly and slowly closer, just as they do. It's only one slow movement, just as Bennett's movement is also singular and slow, but it captures the emotion and swirling. I can spell it right. All movie. So that's it. I've addressed the camera movement. I've explained the impact that it has, and I explained kind of here's why I think the impact is what it is. Cool. So hopefully this helps. This is what we'll be doing for The Crucible. Best of luck, folks.